I'll be on top again. I'm not gonna let you take me down. It's gonna be the whole 9 yards or nothing.
Today's is going to be a good show. We have a special guest today, a good friend of mine I've known for a long time, and an attorney. His name is Richard Leff, and he specializes in real estate law.
That's correct.
Or, for those out there, buying and selling homes. You need an attorney. You always need us for one thing or another. Rich, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Rich, I'm going to cut to the point. All right. What happens typically is that we buy wedding rings, we buy all these big purchases, cars, and then probably one of the biggest purchases that we do in our life that has the most effect on us and our family and everything else is when we purchase a home. And a lot goes into purchasing a home. So I wanted you to take us through the steps and our listeners, and we're going to try now to take it out of the legalese so it makes sense to our listeners.
Okay. Well, you're absolutely right. The purchase of a home is probably one of the biggest purchases that people will make. So in order to plan before you're deciding to buy a home is probably the most important steps that they can do. And a lot of first-time home buyers are not aware of what they should do before they actually start looking for homes.
Should they? That's interesting. Now, because there's a lot of preparation, do you recommend that the potential buyer contact an attorney before they start looking to figure out the steps? Do they go to a banker to see if they get approved, pre-approved? You have all these different terms.
Well, the most important thing that they should actually do is see how much of a house they can actually afford. And the best way to do that is actually speak to a mortgage banker or a mortgage broker so that when they go out looking for homes, they know what price range they should be looking in and what price range they can actually afford comfortably. That is probably the most important thing they could do to start.
Now, when you go, what's the difference between a mortgage broker, a banker? I mean, is there advantages and disadvantages? Let's say you just have, not everybody has, 700, 750 credit.
Okay.
I mean, that's a lot easier. And some people I hear, you always read, well, I can't go to my bank because I have middle-of-the-road credit. I have 650, 660, 670.
Well, you bring up a good point. What's the difference between a mortgage broker or a mortgage banker? You could walk into your bank, and most banks will have a mortgage person in there. Whether they're there on a regular basis or they're there a few days a week, they will have a mortgage department or a loan department right in the bank that you are with. There are mortgage brokers as well. The difference is a good mortgage broker, after taking the facts, after running your credit scores, they will be able to tell you which program you could fit in better. Sometimes when you go straight to a lending institution, you're either going to fit into their box of what they're going to approve or not. A good mortgage broker could sometimes know which program, which lender to get you into that will be more favorable to fit your particular financial situation or your credit score.
So what it seems like to me is that a mortgage broker has more options. They're not tied in, like a bank may have limited options.
In a perfect world, if somebody has perfect credit, their assets, wherever you go, it's going to be fine. If you're not too sure, or if you have a very good tax accountant and you declare things a certain way, sometimes a mortgage broker is the way to go. And these days, the mortgage brokers that are in business are really all the good ones.
Yeah, but you see in the paper all the time and on TV, it says, we don't care what your credit is, we can get you approved for a mortgage. We can do things that banks can't do. When I hear that, what banks can't do, that scares me a little bit.
No, absolutely, and you should run because things have changed over the years. 10 years ago, everyone would get approved. You go in, you sign a piece of paper, you get your loan. Things have shifted, and now it's the opposite end of the spectrum. It's actually not. It's very difficult to get approved for a loan. So your credit score is your credit score. Your finances are your finances. You need to deal with a person who's straightforward, forthright, and honest with you so that you don't have any false expectations.
Now, one last question on this, and I'll move to other aspects of it. Is there a difference between, like, when you see, like, credit unions, you have, I don't know, Nassau Educators Federal Credit Union, you have Bethpage Federal Credit Union. You have all these credit unions now, which are different than banks because they're local, I think. Is there an advantage, let's say, going to a credit union?
Some of the credit unions are very good. You could get great rates with the credit unions. Sometimes the downside of a credit union, it might take a little longer than some other institutions. That's not the case all the time, but sometimes it is the case. But you could get great credit rates with the credit unions, and that's an option that people should definitely explore. It's just like anything else. You want to shop around when you want to obtain a mortgage. You just don't want to go to one person. You want to ask a lot of questions. Whether you go to a mortgage broker, whether you go to a bank, or whether you go to a credit union, you could speak to a lot of different people, find out what their rates are, find out what they can do for you, and then ask the intelligent questions to each other.
So then, to backtrack a little bit, the first step really should be, let me go to a mortgage bank, mortgage broker, or credit union to see, do I even qualify for a loan before I waste my time, my wife's time, my family's time trying to find a house?
Absolutely. You know, when you do go, they will run your credit score, most of them,
Okay.
and they will pre-qualify you or pre-approve you, which pretty much means they will tell you, based on your credit score, based on your income, approximately how much loan you could acquire. And with that information, when you go out looking for houses, you know the parameters of how much house you could afford. So the first step for a first-time home buyer or any home buyer would be to find out how much of a mortgage they can afford and how big of a house they can afford.
Okay, now how big a house? You're just meaning?
Price-wise.
Price-wise.
Price-wise, absolutely.
Okay. Now, what documents, before they go to the mortgage bank, broker, to see their, what we call pre-approval, which documents should they anticipate they're going to have so that they should already have it so to move the process?
Well, the first thing, obviously, is their Social Security, so they could run their credit score, and they have to sign authorization so that the broker or the banker can actually run their credit to see what the credit score looks like. At that point, the individual, whether it is the credit union, the mortgage broker, will ask them for certain documentation, whether it's their tax returns, their W-2s, whatever income they can show so they could prove it, and the banker could actually give them a real pre-qualification.
Do they have to come in with like 6 months of bank statements,
Not at that
paid
point.
on the books, or, you know?
Not at that point. You know, at that point for the pre-qualification, everyone does the pre-qualification differently. You'll get some pre-qualifications where pretty much you just say, this is my income, and you might get a pre-qual. Others that really do it will run the credit, and that's the difference between the two of them.
But see, what concerns me with that is it really worth the paper it's written on? You know, when you say it's pre-qualified, but they haven't really checked into bank statements, how much they owe, how much is in their bank, where are they going to get, let's say, whether it's 3%, 10%, 20%, what good is it? Because now everything, like you said before, it's so hard to get a mortgage, they want to make sure everything's in a row, I guess would be truth in lending almost.
Right. Well, that's true. And that's why a good loan officer will really give you a true and accurate pre-qualification. But you bring up a good point. Just because you do have a pre-qualification doesn't mean you're going to get approved for the loan. So you bring up a very good point, because they're going to run certain aspects of your credit,
Right.
and they're going to ask you for certain documentation to get the pre-qualification. But when you go through that mortgage loan process and they
Right.
go through everything, things can come up, or you may not qualify even though you got a pre-qual. Remember, it's a pre-qualification. It's not a commitment that you will receive the loan.
But that's deceptive.
It is,
Because
and it's not.
somebody says, oh, I was pre-qualified, I can get a house for, you know, $700,000, $300,000. Then they actually go to, you know, they find a house, they said, okay, are you approved? Well, I was pre-qualified. And then they find out they're only qualified for half that amount.
Well, it wouldn't be that they were pre-qualified for half. Something might come up in their credit history, because some people will give pre-quals without actually running their credit reports. So that is true. But for a home buyer, when you're going out to look at houses,
Right.
if you want to put an offer in on the house, they're going to ask you, well, were you pre-qualified? So it's a document that you really need, whether the person that ran it really went into it or not. If you want a house, the seller's going to ask, well, you pre-qualified? So it's a document that a first-time home buyer or any home buyer should have in their possession.
Now, now I want to take you to, I walk into your office, I have a potential, I'm a new buyer for a house, I want to put an offer on either this house, another house, and I say, Rich, I just, I found a house I really like, I'd like to put an offer, I know I need an attorney. What are you going to ask me? What are the things that I should be prepared when I come to your office?
Well, by the time the clients usually go to the attorneys, it's at that point that they have an accepted offer. So for a home buyer, they're going to usually have a licensed real estate agent representing their interests and taking them around looking at houses. So when they do find a house that they like, it's the real estate agent that puts the offer in to the seller on behalf of the purchaser.
But wouldn't you want, I'm maybe being an attorney, I'm a little more cautious. I don't know if I want my broker putting in the offer, because maybe there's different terms to the offer. Wouldn't I be better off having my attorney as opposed to my licensed broker, who in my opinion I'm concerned with, because if they're making, let's be honest, they're making 2, 3, 4% on the sale, contingent on the sale of the house, I don't know. Do they owe me an obligation, or are they working for the seller?
Well,
that concerns me.
Well, you just brought up a whole different avenue. There's different agency agreements, and there's different agencies that a broker could represent. They could be a seller's agent, they could be a broker's agent, they could be an exclusive buyer's agent. So it brings up different kinds of brokers, and when you hire a broker, home buyers should ask the broker, whose interests are you representing, in a simple way. An exclusive buyer's agent only represents buyers, and they represent the buyer's interests only. And a lot of responsibility actually falls on buyer's agents that won't fall on a different agency relationship. So you're absolutely right. There's different agency relationships that a broker can have with their particular client, and it's very important for home buyers to ask their real estate agent, what's the agency relationship between us?
Do they have to tell you in paper, in writing?
Yes, there's actually a form that they have to have signed, which is required, and it has the agency relationship. Because you could have a dual agent that represents the seller and the purchaser, and they're not just representing the purchaser's interests. So you got to be very careful with the agency.
Isn't that a conflict then?
Everything is disclosed. So when you are hiring your real estate agent, you should really have this discussion with them. Whose interests are you representing? Is it just mine? Is it mine and the seller's?
But you know what happens. You finally find a house, you and your wife or your spouse or whomever it is, girlfriend, whatever, is likes, and you're so excited you finally found the house, and you say, okay, what is it going to take to get it done? No one's really going to sit there. Not many people I know are going to be focused on whose interest, is this really the best price? Are these the proper comps? And,
Well, know why? You're absolutely right.
And they prey on that. I hate to say it.
But these questions should be asked before you go looking for the house with your particular real estate agent. When you hire a real estate agent and you sit down with them, you should interview the real estate agent just as you would interview your attorney. And when you sit down with them, you should ask them about the agency relationship before they take you out looking for houses. People don't know about it. They usually get forms thrown in front and say, just sign here. They don't ask the question.
How many people are going to read these forms?
A lot do, a lot don't, but I'd probably say most people don't. They just think it doesn't matter, when in actuality, it's probably one of the most important things at the very beginning of the process that they should be aware of. Whose agent are you? Whose interests are you representing? Very important.
So now but a lot of times people don't find a broker for a house. In other words, they'll look through the Sunday paper or Friday or Thursday paper, and they'll say, oh, this looks like a nice house, let's go see it. So they just go haphazardly, and then they go a few houses, and they say, wow, this is a great house. Who's the broker's there? They say, oh, we can do this. We have a lot of other houses, just sign. And that's how a lot of times they meet a broker. They don't meet it where they're interviewing. And they say, well, this is my listing. So they assume that a listing means they're the only ones that can sell it. That's what it would seem to me if I didn't know a little bit about the industry.
That is a misconception. If they go to the house and they meet a broker, and that broker has that particular listing, they're representing the seller's interests.
Right.
That doesn't mean they can't act representing the purchaser. They can do both sides, but they're being compensated from the seller. They're getting a certain percentage off the purchase price at the time of closing, 4, 5, 6%.
Whatever they agree to.
Whatever they agree to. And that's why it doesn't cost a home buyer to have their own agent represent them. Even if they see something in the paper and they say, hey, they have a broker, it doesn't cost a purchaser anymore to hire their own broker to go with them and represent their interests.
But what typically happens is, when you go to a house that's for sale and they have an open house, I'm guessing, I would say 90, 95%, if not higher, the owner of the house is not usually there. They don't want the owner there. Is that right?
That's correct.
Because for whatever reason, I think maybe it's standard in the industry that the owner's not there. So they speak to the broker. This is what it's listed for. Here's all. What are they really looking for? This is the question you get. What are they really looking for? We really like the house, and they say, well, you know, it's at 520. They probably take 500. But now to me, it's a conflict because they can't give away. They have a duty to the seller and only to really the seller, and they're saying, I could sell the house this. I could be a dual representative and get, if it's a 6% commission, I can get the whole 6%.
Absolutely.
And
and that's why the purchasers should have their own broker representing their interests, just for that reason. Most brokers are honest, but just like any profession, you do not know if an offer is going to be presented or not. If you have your own broker, you're going to know for sure that broker is going to be presented to the listing broker.
If I'm a buyer, it would be a buyer's broker.
You could hire an exclusive buyer's agent.
Do you recommend that?
I do. Even if it's not an exclusive buyer's agent, exclusive buyer's agents sometimes get an extra percentage to be paid by the purchasers. So sometimes home buyers don't want to do that. They don't want to pay an extra 1% to an exclusive buyer's agent.
Because they make less money. It's a dollar. It comes back to the dollar.
Well, it's going to cost the purchaser more money. But at the very least, they should get their own real estate agent, even if they're not an exclusive buyer's agent, to represent and to put in their offer for them.
What obligations that's different if you have a buyer's agent?
The fiduciary duty shifts to the buyer's agents. They have a lot more responsibility, and they really just represent the purchaser's interest. So a purchaser is more protected if they do have an exclusive buyer's agent representing them.
And that's a totally different contract that you sign?
Well, it's not. It's the same disclosure form, but what happens is exclusive buyer's agents will usually have them sign a fee agreement that if they do find a home, that they're guaranteed a certain percentage. So if it's...
So it's guaranteed a percentage whether it's from the purchaser or out of...
Right. If it's like, say, if they say, I have to get 3%, and they find a house and the purchaser... and the seller is only paying the purchaser's agent 2%, that extra 1% can come from the purchaser. That they would have
actually
to
out of their pocket?
Out of their pocket, yes.
Here's another check for five.
So you have to know what you're signing. But on the flip side of that, if you have a good purchaser's agent and it's going to cost you a few $1,000s to pay them an extra 1%, but the buyer's agent is a good agent and they were able to negotiate a great price and save you $10,000, $15,000 because they were doing what they were doing. If you had to outlay $5,000 and this good agent saved you $10,000, it was well worth it. And
yes.
that happens all the time.
But now I could look at it differently. If $5,000 is actually coming out of my pocket, where I'm actually writing you a check or paying you via credit card, as opposed to putting $10,000 on my mortgage over 30 years, as it is, I'm tight when I'm trying to buy the house. It's hard to get things for under 20%. Or, a lot of houses, if you're not a first-time homeowner, they may say, you know what, if I give you the extra $6,000 or $10,000, I can't do it. I'd rather it be put onto...
That's one way of looking at it. But then, once again, if you could buy a house for $20,000, $30,000 less because you have a good buyer's agent negotiating for you and you know they're really presenting an offer and negotiating for you, whatever you pay them is going to be well worth it and you're going to end up saving money in the long run.
Okay. So that's something they should consider. They should interview a buyer's agent, talk to them, and where do you find buyer's agents? Not many people heard that there's buyer's agents.
A lot of people don't know about it because when they do sign the disclosure form in their real estate broker's office, like you said, it's put in front of them, they sign it, and they don't ask the questions. But for me, as an attorney, I always tell my clients, when you first start going looking for houses, have these discussions with your brokers. Whose interests you're representing, what kind of agency relationship are we going to have, so you know up front exactly what is transpiring.
Now, when you say they have a fiduciary duty, the buyer's broker, as opposed to the seller's broker to you, the buyer. Put that in plain English. When you say fiduciary duty, what does that mean?
Their interests lie 100% with the purchaser. They represent the purchaser, only the purchaser. They're not dealing with sellers. So you know you have a loyal person presenting offers and negotiating on your behalf.
Okay, that's good advice. I like that. I never knew that.
So even though, like you said, it could cost them more money, if they do their job, they could actually save money. A good
So
broker,
it may cost you, but you.
but you're saving overall when you make because of good negotiations.
That, and they have a duty just to you.
Exactly.
They're working for you and only you.
Right. So any conflict that you might think your agent might have with an exclusive buyer's agent, it's not there. They're representing and looking out for you.
Now, so now let's say let's move on to now where we want to put in an offer. Do you recommend having the seller's the seller's agent put in the offer sheet? Because quite honestly, a lot of times with an offer, there's different contingencies.
So pretty much how it happens in New York, if a purchaser finds a house and they like the house,
Okay.
their agent, the purchaser's real estate agent, is going to fill out a form and they're going to put an offer in. If it's accepted by the seller, it's actually a signed offer form, offer sheet, and it spells out the purchase price, how much they're going to put down on the signing of the contract, how much mortgage they're going to go for, and they sign it.
There's nothing about contingencies on there?
If there's any contingencies or exclusions,
Give me an example of
well, maybe
typical.
the dining room chandelier is going to be excluded from the premises. The hot tub is not staying with the house; it's going to be excluded. So any exclusions might be written on the premises. If there was an addition to the house or an extension on the house, it actually might say we'll have to obtain the certificate of occupancy for the addition, prior to closing a title. So they do spell out certain items which will need to be in the contract themselves.
A question just came to my mind that concerned me. When you're dealing with a seller's agent or buyer's agent, can they just tell you, "Oh, we have multiple offers," and it's not true? I mean, how do you know, like, if they're telling you the truth? Like, well, you better act quick, you hear, because this place is a hot cake. It's going to go quickly. We have potential multiple offers. They phrase it, we have potential. We're meeting other people. So it kind of forces you, I don't really have time to go get my buyers. I don't really have time to go. I better just put in an offer.
If an agent tells you they have multiple written offers and they do not, they can actually be fined.
How are you going to show that? How do you show that?
You could ask, because they're in writing, you could ask for the written offers that you had, and if they're lying on Long Island under LIBOR, they could be fined, and the fines are quite expensive. They could be $5,000, some of the fines.
Would that hold up the sale of a house?
No, because
But now
you already lost the house already. So what, but sometimes, when people get angry, if they lose a house, they're going to go after the agent if it wasn't true.
But now let's say they say there's multiple offers. I say, I want to see it in writing.
No, they're not going to show you
So what good is
until
it?
after the fact.
So after the fact, now I've already lost the house
So what
that I've been looking to for 6 months, let's say.
So what usually happens? You're looking at a house, and you have interest in this house, and you want to bid on the house. You want to put an offer in. You put your offer in. This listing agent comes back and tells your real estate agent that I have multiple offers on the house. I want you to put in, and I'm telling everybody to put in their best offer by 6 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay.
So it gives the purchasers an opportunity to up their offer. And then the listing agent will go through all the offers and let the person know who the seller decided to go with.
But it's not always the highest bidder gets the house, because there may be contingencies like this will be an all-cash deal. We're ready to move in within 60 days. So not every offer is the same.
It may not be, and that happens all the time. It may not be the highest offer. It may be,
Right.
like you said, it might be, well, this one's an all-cash offer. They can close within 20 days. This one is only going for a 20% mortgage, and he's paying me more money. So there are different
Or
contingencies
this one's
to
already
consider.
approved. There's the approval comes in,
Well,
right?
pre-qualified, pre-approved, they're all going to have a pre-qual or pre-approved. But as I always say, until you have the keys in your hand at the closing table, you have nothing.
And that's a good point. Well, thank you for coming in today. I know we didn't even get to so many more of the things we wanted to. We're going to have you come back, and we're going to talk to how you select an attorney. What is a real estate attorney, and can anybody just do real estate as an attorney? Thank you for listening to Legal Straight Talk. You can always call us at 631-465-9797 for Legal Straight Talk. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Give my regards to Broadway. Remember me to Herald Square. Tell all the gang at 47.
Hi, I'm Jerry Parisi. Welcome to tonight's version of the Long Island Filmmaker Show, now known as the Filmmaker Show.
Remember me to Herald Square.
Hi, I'm Jerry Parisi. Join Tom Neely and Tommy Marr right here on Cablevision Channel 20 each week for an interesting episode of The Long Island View.